So I'm really excited. We got Brendan here with us today. How are you doing, Brendan?
Good. Been a long time.
It really has. It's crazy that we went from a weekly session that we would do remotely, and here we are in person for a change, even though we both lived in the same city and see each other pretty frequently. We always recorded remote.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice to sit across. A little different.
A little bit different.
A little bit different.
Now when I piss you off, you can just slap me.
I know.
So we've got the housing market. It's 2025, and I think it was really, really interesting because the talking point that everybody was kind of saying last year as the market waned and kind of just meandered around was, well, we got to get through the election. So we get through the election, and then it was, okay, Trump's coming into office. We got to get to Inauguration Day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all happened. So have we seen a change?
No. Actually, numbers overall are the lowest they've been in.
And when we say lowest in 30 years, we're talking all the way back to 1995?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was alive.
Okay, 1995. I was 8 years old.
Okay.
I was not worried about the housing market in 1995. I'm sure 1995 felt not as slow because there was no economic recession, no nothing in 95.
No, it was fairly good at that time.
So here we are, 2025. Millions and millions more people, more homeowners than ever, and we sold the same amount of homes as 1995.
Yes.
But for a higher dollar amount, right?
Correct.
Yeah, a lot higher.
A lot higher. Yeah, it's interesting because last year was 4.19 million.
Okay.
Which you look 3 years ago was 6.5 million.
Well, that was 3 years ago. That was 2022. Actually, I'm thinking back. 2020, everybody was like, COVID happened, and then the housing market blew up. Was the craziest year. 2021 was actually slightly better than 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And then 2022, it felt like the cliff fell off. Like we all thought it was over. Not the case.
No.
We've all experienced. In fact, if you look at just people renewing in the mortgage industry, I believe at the peak in 2020, there was over 300,000 licensed mortgage originators. People like, whether that's at a banking institution, licensed mortgage loan originator like myself, that's individually licensed. There was over 300,000, and numbers for just now came out for 2025 renewals. So people that renewed at the end of 2024 to continue working in this industry and be able to was 154,000. So it's half. In 5 years, we've lost half the market.
That's amazing, but it's understandable.
Yeah.
It's understandable. When you lose 2 million transactions, 2 million, that's a third of all transactions.
Yeah, but the thing is like in 2019, like we had this massive jump. Now we're clearly lower than 2019 and 2018 and all the way back to 1995. Yep. So
it's, well, when you look at it graphically, that's probably the best way to look at it. You're like, a wave, small wave. Then you had the tsunami, literally a tsunami.
Yeah.
Right. Then you went back to normal waves. And what happened during that tsunami? More real estate agents than ever before. More mortgage brokers, lenders than ever before. So you get that, but then you take away the 2 million transactions, and really a very flat appreciation in homes as well. And then you get people who are locked in, much like myself. I'm with a 3% 20-year mortgage. I can't leave.
Sure you could.
Yeah. Yeah. If I bought the same priced home that my house is valued at, took the $200 and something thousand that I have in equity,
put it back into
a new house, I double my mortgage.
Yeah. Is that new house even bigger? Like
no,
it'd be the same house.
Be the same house. Yeah. Be literally be the same house.
It's a different neighborhood.
Yep.
Without all your updates that you tasted and did just for you.
Without my wife's garden, so that's not going to happen.
That should it happen though? Like
I kind of like the garden.
Okay.
I've gotten used to it.
All right.
I kind of like. I get all my squirrels, the birds. raccoons.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
I laughed because non-related, but one of our LOs has a like one of those bird feeder video cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So when the birds come up, and she like was posting it, and she's like, "I feel so old that this brings me so much joy." And then I'm sitting there watching it. I was like, I kind of see why she likes this. It's very peaceful. So and the stress, the chaos of everything we do, it's really really interesting because it is a different market. And you mentioned appreciation, and this is an area that there's a lot of debate on because I
Mhm.
think nationally we're still seeing 3 to 4% appreciation. They're still talking about it,
It-
but I feel like it's smoke and mirrors. It's kind of like unemployment numbers where I'm like, like it changes based off of who wants like
Who's
what
counting?
narrative. Yeah.
Who's counting? Yeah, and I think you and I, with our podcast, we always got into the details
Mhm.
because the details are so important. And I've kind of had this ongoing, I wouldn't call it feud, but discussion with
Another podcast.
another podcaster, and he challenged me. He challenged me to go back and look at what the median value of a home was in Orlando, November 2023, and then what was it November 2024.
Mhm.
What do you think the difference in appreciation was?
I mean, nationally they were saying we've appreciated at 3.5%.
No.
Oh, it was lower. Okay, like 2,
No,
1.
it was actually
Like it was their appreciation.
it was $1,000 appreciation.
Okay, 0.0001. We
Yeah.
round up here, so 1%.
Yeah, 1%. So it's one of those things where you have to get into. You
Mhm.
have to think about why. Why would you? Because a good portion of the market has been priced out of it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just literally straight priced out of housing.
I mean, affordability is one of the biggest talking points in the industry.
Oh, it is.
In real estate.
It is.
It's non-existent. There is.
When you've got Oviedo, which is a very well-to-do middle class, I would say even upper middle.
Yeah, I would lean toward more middle
Okay.
upper.
Median income roughly 90,000.
Okay.
Okay, but your average income to afford a house, 100. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah. Well, statistically, what was the? I saw this post and I don't know. Like, I could be totally wrong. Like, this could totally just be clickbait. But it was really really interesting because it was talking about affordability. It was talking about how much of your annual income, like what percentage of the average price compared to your annual income, what it was.
Mhm.
And currently that number is like 22%. So like, or currently it's 14%, excuse me. But in the Great Recession, like, we got to go way back. We got to go further back.
Yeah.
Great Depression, not
Depression,
Recession. We're
yeah.
not talking Great
Yeah.
Recession. We're not talking
No, we're talking
2000.
the depression.
We're talking
You're talking the
depression.
Yeah.
So all the way back, your income, the average income in the U.S. was 22% of the average sale price of a home. But right now, that number is 14%. So it was actually more affordable to buy a
Yes.
home during the Great Depression.
Yep. Statistically, we don't even have to go back that far. We can go back to 2002, 2007, 2008. And when you looked at what the DTI was at that time,
Mm-hmm.
the average DTI was about 33, I believe 33, 34%. What's our average DTI now? 40,
Like
41,
42.
42?
Like, and the hard part about that is like, that's the average, but I tell you 99% of clients are well above that.
Yeah.
You have the 1% that just skew that number so much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're kind of talking about right now. Who's buying the home?
Yeah. It's because when you look at it, it's okay, maybe median prices have gone up.
Mhm.
But is it because the only people who afford the home are buying higher priced home?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that because I saw this in my neighborhood. People, if you want to stalk me, I live in Tuscaloosa, which is like, I joke, I was like, it was the place to be in the
Mhm.
80s.
Yep.
Like it was like, that was like a cool, like up and coming, like hipster, not really hipster. It was a country club community. But it's still like a lot of people love it because it's bigger lots, bigger yards. And I noticed something that I've seen a lot of renovation happening, a lot of remodels, additions, because they're bigger lots so people can add on to them. But then in the last year, I've noticed something else, that people are buying homes to tear them down to rebuild bigger homes.
Mm-hmm.
And it blew my mind because I saw one on one of the main roadways, and the house, I was like, wait a minute, like, wasn't the house listed for well over $1 million? Sure enough, it
I know
sold
which
for
one that
over
is.
$1 million, and it literally was torn down 4 months later so that they can build a new house. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm not like that person.
Yep.
Like that's completely, is that what's kind of like, it's people like that driving the market right now?
I truly believe. Because when you look at the numbers and you look at the price breakups,
Mhm.
you know, every Monday morning, Orlando Regional comes out with their numbers. I look at them every morning, and you look at the volume of sales, and your volume is actually skewed higher end. Their discounts on those houses are higher than they've, but the actual sales price is still up there. So in a lot of ways, it can make it look like the houses are appreciating. The median value is going up because if I'm only selling 10 homes between 2 and 300,000, but I'm selling 25 homes, 500, 600,000,
Still going to skew up.
it's going to skew up.
Makes sense.
You know?
But that's looking behind the numbers.
Yeah, but
You can't look behind.
You've got to. But there's also just the gut you get from being out there talking to people. And when you're talking to clients and they've given up because like we're never going to be able to, and you feel for them. I was very fortunate. We got ours in 2018 before everything went crazy.
Great time.
Perfect time. I thought I was worried because we got 5.25 because rates were just starting to jump up. But still, I thought we got a very good value house. Now we're worth quote 450. Could I, because I'm self-employed, okay, 1099. You know how that works. Taking off the expenses so you don't have a lot of taxes. What I would have to do to be able to qualify for that house today would, even screwing around with the numbers, I probably couldn't. I make a good living,
Mm-hmm.
But it's there's just a huge void that I don't think we've seen in housing, and no one's addressing it. You don't have D.R. Horton, you don't have Taylor Moore, you don't have Pulte. See all these developments that they're throwing up. Everything's still starting at $400,000 up.
But they're getting back to 3. We're seeing some cutting.
Oh boy, are we seeing some cutting. We got on today just to check because I'd saved that for our meeting today. Lennar has an Instagram ad that, homes for the high 200s, right? Of course, it's kind of like the car dealership where they got one.
Yeah, they got one.
They got one. But how did they get to that price? They cut it $60,000, was it? $60,000.
And here's the crazy part.
It was an 18% decrease.
They're still making a profit on the house,
Yeah.
which is the funny part. So,
sorry, that's
the boss. That's why you can't. That's the only person that doesn't get silenced.
Yes.
18% drop, but they're still not losing money on it. We get it. Like they're not going to take a loss. They'd rather sit on it than take a loss. But they want to get it off their books too.
Yep.
Right. So maybe they're closer to break even, but their margins are crazy. But the part that blows my mind is there's still not a desire, and I get it. Like they're still able to, because affordability is such a big piece. They're willing to play with the numbers to keep themselves looking attractive from the repurchase side of the industry.
They're destroying the repurchase side of the
because
industry right now.
They're buying everything down.
Correct. What they're doing is, but they're not doing it like they did previously. Previously, what they did is they bought temporary buy.
Yep.
So you buy it down for the first 2 years at 2%, buy it down the second year at 1%, then it go to the regular. They're not doing that anymore.
Well, because rates didn't come down. That was the pit. You could
Mhm.
say that 2 years ago, rates were going to come down. But, we were talking about this 2 years ago. It's not a guarantee.
No.
Like, if everything's perfect, yes, they should be lower, but it's still not a guarantee. And sure enough, rates didn't go down. So they can't keep that same song and dance because people are going, well, rates are still high. What if it doesn't go down?
Yep.
So they have to find another option.
Yep. And what they're doing is, if I've got a $400,000 brand new house that I'll buy down the rate and lock you in at 4.99%.
So like 2% lower than the market,
Yep.
1.5%, 2% lower
2%
than
lower
the
than the
market.
market. And I've got a resale that may need a little work here, a little work there. Which one are you going to buy?
Brand new one with a lower rate
In a
because I
heartbeat.
can't get that with the resale.
Lower rate in the interest, lower rate in insurance.
Lower insurance, yep.
A lot of people don't realize that, but the insurance is probably, I would say, $2,000 to $3,000 a year less on a new build for at least the initial. Usually, it's 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Your insurance costs, because that's the other thing that's destroying.
And it's stupid low.
market.
Like $500,000 house, it might be an $80 a month insurance.
Exactly.
But if you were to buy a 12-year-old house that's a $500,000, you're probably looking at $250-ish.
Yeah.
For
Actually, I'd probably say more like $350 these days.
If it's 12 years old with a 12-year-old roof,
Yep.
yeah, like,
Yep.
And that's the hard part, is that 12-year-old roof still has life, but insurance doesn't really, like, they know, like, it's a game. Like, say it's a game, it's not. Like, insurance companies have to make money. I get it. And they're in the business to make money, which is why they don't like paying claims. We won't go into that topic.
No. But you look at that, and it's just, someone asked me, what is it? Housing. Well, it's not one thing. It's the prices. It's the interest rates. It's the insurance rates. It's the tax rates now as well. And then you've got people whose income hasn't, it's moved up a little bit, but nowhere in proportion to the other 4 items that really go into owning a home.
Yeah.
And that's why, you're seeing the numbers. I'm not a pessimist, but I'm a realist. And realist, I don't see that, and most people don't see projection in sales going up this year. They still see it being pretty flat at around the 4 million, sales.
Unless
we
see rates go.
Yeah.
We see rates go down, we'll see more sales.
Which is interesting, because you and I thought it would have to be around 6.5. But
we're back there already on government,
and it's not moving,
and it's not really. And I think it's because everything else has gone up in cost too.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the hard part is, and what you've seen is like, and this is the funny part is like, I joke, like, my landscaper, remember when gas spiked about a year and a half ago? Like, it just like spiked out of nowhere, and there's the oil issues and shipping and all this other stuff, and gas went, up to well over $5 a gallon here in Central Florida. California, you'd probably think that was cheap. But in Central Florida, it was expensive.
Yep.
So like my landscaper, and this is very fundamental, my landscaper increased my monthly bill citing gas.
Yes.
6 months later, gas is back in the threes. Do you think my landscaper dropped my bill?
No.
No. And I think that's
the same thing.
I think that's which I don't blame them. Like, hey, they were like, perfect excuse to raise everything. Now they're like, wait, we're making more money. Profit margin's gone up. Like, this is great. We're not going to, they're already paying it. Like, no point to drop it. Right. But I think that's what kind of happened across everything is a lot of stuff spiked in price because it got more expensive to ship it, to get it.
Yep.
There's supply chain issues. And then now they kind of stabilize there, even though it costs less. But really what's happened now is who's benefiting. Yeah. We're no longer benefiting.
No,
the consumer,
builder's
benefiting. The owners of a lot of corporations and industries, the people at the, for all intents and purposes, people at the top of the food chain, the 1%ers, the 2%ers, the 3%er, because their margins have gone up, their profits have gone up at company levels, which means that they're able to pay themselves more.
Yep.
Or take more.
One thing I always joked about, because I always found this funny, was FHA. How they come up with their new loan limits.
Yes.
Every year. Every year
it changes. Almost. I think it's gone down once in the last 15 years, but it goes up almost every year.
It was amazing how builders home prices always went up to just a hair over the every year.
A year. Because if it's just a hair over and the buyer puts the required
Right.
3.5% down, they're back
under
underneath.
the limit.
Interesting.
Yep. I always
good
found that.
strategy.
Always found that. It's like
Very
makes
smart.
sense.
Makes sense, right?
You know,
Why
I
not?
know where I can stretch it to.
Yep. I know I'm not cutting off a buyer pool.
Right.
by
Thank
doing
you.
it.
Thank you, FHA, for giving me that 4% price increase.
But that's because median prices are going up.
Yep.
So we're still seeing them go up, but it's very, very interesting. I think the marketplace is very wild right now. I don't think we're going to see some strong stabilization. A lot of people expected Trump to change everything. I love Trump. He said interest rates have to come down.
Yep.
But he can't like
He-
and if he was able to force it, I'm just saying if he was, it would be very, very bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, here's your whole problem with that, and I have had this discussion. I did support the president. I'm like, oh, is he gonna? I'm like, no, he's not gonna be able to help the house, not for at least a year. And quite honestly, the only thing that he could do immediately really help the housing is stop the spending. They have to stop the government.
yeah,
And the government. What a lot of people don't understand, and what they don't see, is that the Biden administration, in the last year of their full administration, I believe it was every 120 days, was basically a new $1 trillion. When you issue that debt, someone's got to buy that debt.
yeah.
Well, if I don't have a lot of faith in you, if you're flooding the market with debt, what happens to the yield?
Good.
No, it doesn't go down. It goes up. And what did we see? We saw the 10-year Treasury, which a lot of the which is what mortgage rates are kind of based off of.
Yeah, roughly.
And
Yep,
roughly,
yeah, they kind of fall.
it's a good guide. We saw them spike. I believe got over 5 last year for one point.
Very briefly.
Very briefly, yeah. So you've got a flood of money that nobody wants right now because they've lost confidence in you. They've lost confidence in your economy. So they're not willing to. Plus, this Yellen took a bunch of long-term debt that we had, 20 and 30 years, and refinanced it into short-term,
Stupid.
increasing our debt load. I mean, for the first time in history, the United States is going to pay over $1 trillion in a year
Interest.
in interest.
It's nuts.
It's stupid.
Yeah, we have to, and that's where I think we've seen the attention has been on spending initially. And I don't know all the answers. We're not like if we knew all the answers, we'd be much wealthier than we are.
I think if this is where I truly believe we have to.
Mhm.
Reason being is not only do we see the credit card debt increase for the first time to student loan debt well into right. So we've become a country that lives on debt, and we're not willing to give up our lifestyle in order to get that debt paid off. And there's Instagram younger gentlemen who gets these people on who are in debt, and it's kind of fun to watch. And you just listen to these people, and the way they I deserve that. I don't want to go into it. I don't want to work. What the friggy friend? It's just, but it is. Our leaders have to set examples. I know you do with your children. I do the same with mine. Is I explain to them, hey, you've got to put money away. If you're at your age, you put this much money away. Even if we earn say a 4% treasury rate on something, by the time you're 40, you're not going to have to worry about it. but you have to be willing to. Guess what? That extra video game, you can't have it. No, you can't have it. It's a decision. Pay for it. Have your fun now. Pay for it later. Which one do you want to do? You know?
Or both.
Very rarely do I ever see it work out as both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that begs me like, and this brings me to something that I think is a really interesting concept. Is I think the most powerful currency in the world, most powerful currency is debt. Because it can either
correctly.
Because debt is what makes the wealthiest people in the world the most wealthy, because they know how to leverage debt correctly. But debt is also the biggest thing holding people back.
Yep.
Like debt can both crush you or make you if you don't know how to handle it. And that's why I think it's because if you're operating just in cash, if you don't have, you don't have.
Yeah.
That is the multiplier.
Yes. But again, credit card for that vacation.
Not the credit card.
Not the way, not that 29%.
Yeah. Now, if you pay credit card and then pay it off the next month and you get your points out of it, awesome. Right? You did okay with it. Or if you use that and it's just a short, like if you're paying off that debt monthly, makes sense. Or I'm not saying to do this, but I laughed. I had an associate, a buddy of mine, who got a 0% interest card for 1 year. That guy sat there and said, you know what? I'm going to pull out $25,000 and I'm going to put it in the stock market. And he put it in SPY a year ago.
Oh, he did good.
And he did that with 5 different cards. 0% interest. Bought all of it. Bought all of SPY. SPY's up over 30% year over year. All-time highs. Literally, that's all he did. Just put it all in SPY. Over 100 grand in SPY. And he just recently took all that debt, took all of it out, paid all that debt off, and then turned around and reinvested with new 0% interest cards to reinvest that money back in.
That's awesome.
I was like, I wouldn't do it. I can't do it. But I was like, this is a guy that's smart because he took over 100 grand, made 40K profit, borrowed the money at 0 interest, and now he's redoing it. And he's going to redo it a second year. Now, my whole thing was, he was like, I know my number. So I have my stop losses. If the market falls to a certain percent, I'm going to make sure I get out before I lose money so that I can pay this debt back. I'm not going to do it in a way that I can't pay this debt back. Yep. And I said, that's extremely intelligent. And he's 15 years younger than me. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I can learn something from you.
Yep.
But I thought it was really, really interesting. Now, the key is too, to be able to afford to do that. Guess what he's also doing? He also makes a decent living outside of it. Because to pay the credit card bills, even at 0% interest on 100,000 of debt, he makes considerable.
Yep.
But I thought it was a very smart, very creative way of leveraging debt to grow his net worth.
Yeah.
So, and he was smart. He didn't put in risky play. Like, I mean, he could have put in Bitcoin and this and that, but those still felt like they're more risky.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't put it in Ripple or, like Ripple's up like 400%, but you wouldn't catch me putting money in it. There's still too much uncertainty in it.
Yep.
Just really interesting to see people leverage debt to make profit, or leverage debt to buy investment properties, or do this, to flip houses, to do that, to make purchases, to make strategic business purchases. There's so many ways that you can leverage debt properly. But the key is being disciplined with that debt and not going on that vacation that because you deserve it.
Yep.
The way you deserve a vacation is save up for a vacation.
Yeah.
Personally, that's my thought.
Yeah. And it's just, when in our business, we see more of the families, I think, who are struggling, who have this, have the student loan debt, may have, their first child. I mean, the car payments these days. One of my friends bought a truck, $120,000. I think his payment's $15,000. And
Drop in the bucket.
He's old. He's older than I am, and I'm like, what'd you pay for your first house? And he's like, $95,000. I'm like, okay. And how much you just pay for that truck? 150, 20, 100, something like that. Like, okay, just want you to put that in perspective. Really needed that new truck, didn't you? No.
Too funny.
But I mean, he can afford it, but it's still, it just when you think about it, things like that,
Yeah.
you know, it's absolutely.
Well, I think we've got great stuff here. We'll cut it short.
All right.
No real exit on this one because we didn't do a podcast, but we'll